Good evening. Last year, if you remember, I was wearing gold. This year, I've been downgraded to silver. They tell me it's platinum. So silver apparently is the new gold, so don't frown on the outfit. So to save some time, we're going to start, just to give everybody a chance to fight the traffic. As always, at our conferences, we try to give away as much free stuff as possible. And we come up with these creative ways to do it. Last year was the money or the box, and the year before was Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. And we do all these nice games, and my team tells me all these rules. So last year we had an easy button. I wanted a button. And when we finished the game, I looked down and I saw the button. And for the first time I remembered, we spent about 3 days finding that button, and I never used it. So this year it's much simpler. I'm just wearing the coat, and we're going to play Power Bingo. Now, Power Bingo is foolproof so that I can't screw it up. Now, if it looks rigged, it probably is. It's not been audited by any outside agencies. But, so if you have a lucky card, you're going to win something. Oh, you got it. $200 right there. All right, so we need a volunteer. Now everybody wants to be a volunteer. You win it. Congratulations, $200. Bingo! Finally, we have a winner. $300 spa day. Bingo! We have a winner. We got a bingo. You win it. You got me. Yeah, congratulations. I'd like to take a minute to say thank you to Nobel Biocare. We've got John Hansel, Henry Netter, and Lee Vaughan, which is our area representatives. I've worked with Nobel for many, many years. They're played a large part in making tonight happen, so thank you so much to you guys. Although tonight is not an implant-related night, we'll talk a little bit about a really innovative Nobel technology at the end. But they stepped up, and although tonight is about digital, and we have great speakers who are going to discuss this, thank you, Nobel. Guys, give them a hand. So you probably noticed over the last few years, the last 3 or 4 conferences has always been about digital. And it's hard to think that it's not going to be about digital going forward. And I think that's why we're here tonight, to learn from our peers, people that's worked with this technology. And I'd like to take a minute to say thank you. When we do presentations like this, it's always easy to say, do you like to come and speak on something you've spoken on before? Because you just take an old presentation, you fluff it up a little bit, and you go pretend like it's new. But when we speak on something like this, Dr. Skiriakuk and Dr. Edson, you have to start all over. You have to create a whole new presentation. And I really appreciate the time that you guys put in to get this to us on time, kind of on time. I read one day, they said every slide in PowerPoint averages out to about 45 minutes of time to set it up. So I know it takes a lot of time. You guys hardly get paid to be here, and everybody appreciates the input. So we got 3 speakers tonight that I think have some relevant input. They've all been using the digital impression machine, and we had to choose one to go with, and this is the Trios 3. Now, we accept any files. I don't think there's a big difference when they come in, but there's a really big difference in what we can do with different types of equipment. So what we're going to try to do tonight is give you a non-sales driven opinion on what's possible and what's not possible, and what's the drawbacks and what's the battles we're fighting. The technology, as I think you're going to see tonight, is exceptional. We're past that point where it's a growth spurt and everybody is first in and not sure if they're going to be the leading or the bleeding edge. So I think comfortably you'll learn tonight that it is a very relevant technology. So I'd like to thank all of you for taking your time. Now what we'll do, just to stay on time, is we'll have a quick questions and answers afterwards. We have scanners outside and some of the carbon flex partials and samples of everything. So please stop by. So we've been through a really tough election year. I'm from Africa, and we have tough elections in Africa. And it gets bloody. But this year was extra rough. So I thought to myself, my dad always said, there's 2 things you never make jokes about it is when you do public speaking, and that's politics and religion. But because it's an election year, I thought I'll get away with a small election joke. So instead of me speaking, I thought I'm going to close tonight with some really big names. So I reached out to Katy Perry, Lady Gaga, and this guy, Bon Jovi. And I asked, would you guys come and close the night for us? And all of them kind of flaked out, and I wasn't sure what's going on. Nobody seemed to be interested to join, such a prestigious conference. And a friend of mine was in Canada at a border, and we spotted them crossing the border outside the country. So with that, I'm unfortunately the backup for Lady Gaga, Katy Perry, and John Bon Jovi. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first speaker. He received his Bachelor of Science degree from Rochester Institute with highest honors, DDS with honors, graduating top 15 in his class from University of Buffalo in 2001. Completed externships in pediatric dentistry as well as oral surgery, advanced education, received his AEGD from UNC Chapel Hill, and more relevant, in private practice for 15 years. Now, it's a man that I truly value for his clinical abilities, and I know the reason I asked Dr. Cook to come and talk to us tonight, I know he's extremely diligent. So he did a lot of research. He's probably the one guy I know asked more questions than anybody I've ever dealt with, and they were all good questions. So without further ado, we're very excited to hear what you think after a few months with this scanner. Almost 6-8 months now?
April 2016.
April, so
yeah,
we're going on. So thank you so much. We're looking forward to hearing. And I'll get out of my platinum suit.
And I'll see if the mic is on. You good? Good evening. I am on. Okay, there we go. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight about digital dentistry. While preparing for this presentation, I learned a fascinating statistic. As of June 2016, there are 2 million mobile apps that were available to download for various Apple devices. With so many apps available in the digital world, I began to wonder, could an iPhone app actually make dentists obsolete?
All right. Let's take a look at that cavity. Say ah.
Welcome to your dentistry diagnosis app.
I made this app myself. I'm a bit of a tinkerer.
Can't see.
Good enough.
So my cavity is actually just in the
Nope.
back.
Don't worry about it. I've got it. Open wide.
Counting 32 teeth, 1 filling.
It's impressive, isn't it?
I have 2 fillings, not 1.
Oh, it's close enough.
89 teeth, 115 teeth. Hexagon mouth shape. Breath.
I should have
Excellent.
downloaded that patch. Let's see. Oh, there we go. All right. Open wide.
Insert barcode. Patient 52% likely to have cavity. Proceed with drill.
Ah.
Wait, what about an x-ray?
Oh no, not worth the cost. Open source is free. Besides, this is good enough.
The right analytics make all the difference. When it comes to your business software, don't improvise. Trust the standard.
So,
Thanks to Steve for making that happen. So tonight I'm going to talk about 5 topics. I'm going to review an overview of digital dentistry and industry trends, intraoral scanner options, the features of the Trios 3, and some different CAD/CAM workflows. We'll also review a digital crown from start to finish, as well as some scanning clinical tips. So to begin with, let's define what digital dentistry is. I know it sounds obvious, but digital dentistry is any dental technology or device that incorporates digital or computer-controlled components in contrast to that of mechanical or electrical alone. There are approximately 10 different pieces of dental equipment that may fall within the realm of digital dentistry. These include digital shade matching, electronic records, digital photography, occlusion and TMJ analysis, hard and soft tissue lasers, electric handpieces, digital radiography, implant dentistry, caries diagnosis, and the specific focus of our presentations tonight is intraoral imaging and CAD/CAM dentistry. So how do dental companies view the expansion of digital technology? I thought this was an interesting slide, which shows that in 2015, the CEO of Patterson Dental estimated an 83% opportunity in the marketplace for CAD/CAM dentistry. In addition, you can see that there's a 96% opportunity for cone beam and 3D scanning. Next, I'm going to quickly review what is called the technology adoption life cycle. This is a model that describes the adoption of a new product or innovation according to defined adopter groups. You see these at the bottom, and the model indicates that the first group of people to use a new product are obviously called innovators, followed by the early adopters, then the early majority, the late majority, and the laggards. And I don't think anyone wants to be a laggard. The process of the adoption over time is typically illustrated with this bell curve. So the model indicates that the first group of people to use the new product are the innovators, and disruptive innovations such as technology create a chasm between the first two adopter groups. If we look at the top portion of the graph, which is called the hype cycle, this provides a graphical representation of the maturity and adoption of emerging technologies through 5 different phases. The first phase is called the technology trigger. This is a potential technology breakthrough that kicks things off. Next is a peak of inflated expectations, and this is characterized by early publicity, which produces a few success stories, but also numerous failures as well. Next, we have a trough of disillusionment in which interest declines as the technology fails to deliver. That's followed by a bit of a recovery called the slope of enlightenment. This is when more options become available, the technology becomes more widely understood, and second and third generation products appear from various providers. Finally, we have the plateau of productivity in which mainstream adoption starts to take off. The technology's broad market applicability and relevance are now starting to pay off. So if we apply this model to digital dentistry, we must first give some historical perspective and give credit to CEREC, which was first developed over 30 years ago at the University of Zurich. And when we apply the model to digital dentistry, we see what Conrad and I have discussed numerous times, which is we expect during the next 3 years that CAD/CAM technology and intraoral scanning is really going to increase exponentially. And we all hope, especially for those that have not invested in this technology yet, we would hope that increased competition will bring prices down, although I certainly have not seen this, and I've been watching the market. So for right now, you're all out of luck until more companies start to produce different scanners. So a quick comparison of the top 6 scanners on the market, and please keep in mind these estimated retail prices can vary significantly depending on the discounts you get from your distributor, as well as the different hardware, software, and data plan options. To begin with, we have the Carestream CS3500. This is a monochromatic unit, and more recently, they have come out with a color unit, which is the CS3600. These both come in at kind of a middle price range in the 20s to 30s. Next, we have the PlanScan from Planmeca. This is based on E4D technology, and this also comes in at the mid-20,000 range. If you add an in-office mill, of course, it increases the cost significantly, upwards of $100,000. In the middle, or the third option, we have the 3M TrueDef, which has the lowest price point of any scanner. However, it is monochromatic and does require powder. which to some are viewed as a bit of a downside, but to owners that have only paid $16,000 does not seem to be too big of an issue. Next, we have the Sirona CEREC OmniCam, and we have to give credit to CEREC, who still currently dominates the worldwide market for CAD/CAM technology. They do have the longest track record, as well as, again, most likely the highest number of users worldwide. The scanner by itself is rarely sold just individually, but it is a very high price point. If you add an in-office mill, the price can increase upwards of almost $150,000. The iTero Element by Align Technology is primarily marketed to Invisalign providers, of course, since Align Technology owns the company. Finally, my favorite scanner, the one I purchased and the one Conrad seems to like as well, is the 3Shape Trios. I have the color version of this, which is at a fairly high price point in the mid-40s. Recently, they have expressed that they are going to come out with a monochromatic version, which has a slightly lower price point in the 30s. And I believe this is currently available or will be available this month. So my digital dentistry journey involved demoing 3 different units. I demoed the 3M TrueDef, the CEREC OmniCam, and of course the 3Shape Trios, as I mentioned. I bought the Trios 3 in April 2016 through the Absolute Alliance. And the reasons for this particular choice were documented accuracy and consistency, excellent features and digital tools, a wide range of clinical indications and CAD/CAM workflows, and the fact that this is an incredibly fast scanner. It's been nicknamed Insane Speed, and if you look this up on YouTube, or Conrad has time to show it this evening, you will see that this scanner has very impressive speed. And we're all impatient, so this is certainly a huge benefit. Also, this system is full color, it has no powder, and has an open STL file format. As Conrad mentioned, it is the preferred scanner of Absolute Dental Lab, and I can tell you unequivocally that the technical support we've gotten from Absolute Dental to integrate this technology has been fantastic. And I honestly cannot imagine getting better technical support through a dental distributor. So I appreciate everybody listed there, Conrad, Matt, Grant, Aaron, Jason, Steve, and everybody else that has really helped us integrate this technology into our office. We really could not have done it without you. I would not want to be on the phone to Denmark anytime I have trouble with the scanner. So thanks again to Absolute for the great technical support. The beauty of buying through the Digital Alliance is, obviously, Absolute has a vested interest in your success. They want you to succeed with this technology. So when we look at an evaluation of the accuracy of intraoral scanners, Hack and Pat Zelt published a study in 2015 in the ADA Professional Product Review. They measured the accuracy and the consistency of the top 6 scanners that I previously reviewed. So what you're seeing is micron values that basically show us the accuracy and consistency. Obviously at the top we have the best, going down to the least favorable at the bottom. However, it's important to understand that basically all of these systems are excellent. And within the limits of this study, all 6 of the scanners produce clinically acceptable results in terms of accuracy. What I mean by this is when we're talking about a micron, we're talking about 1/1,000,000th of a meter. And to put that in perspective, the width of a human hair is 40 to 50 microns.
Not mine. My is not
If you're Conrad, it could be 0.
I have 0 tolerances.
But everybody else, hopefully 40 to 50. According to the ADA, the marginal fit for a cemented restoration, such as a crown, should be in the range of 25 to 40 to allow space for cement. However, if you look at the literature and talk to clinicians, most people feel that this range is seldom actually achievable. However, if you do look at the scientific literature, you'll see a range of acceptable marginal adaptation that can range anywhere from 30 microns up to 120 microns, depending on the investigator. So the Trios, which is manufactured by 3Shape, has put together a number of studies, of course, to brag about their clinical superiority. We can take this with a grain of salt in that any manufacturer is going to find scientific literature to support the excellence of their system. But there are 6 well-done studies here that do show that the Trios is equivalent in terms of accuracy, if not superior, to many of the other systems on the market. In addition, if we look at the accuracy of the Trios in comparison to standard impressions, we find a similar concept, in that the Trios is at least as accurate as standard impressions, if not clinically superior. And again, we have about 5 studies that speak to that point as well. So for those of you that aren't familiar with the Trios, I'm going to describe some of the features that were really selling points to me prior to investing in this technology. So in the upper left, you can see this particular system is marketed as fast and easy, and look how happy that dentist and assistant are. I mean, what more could you possibly need? And it does look a little bit like Dries. That's an excellent observation, Mark. So in addition to happy clinicians and staff members, the Trios does scan in full color, which they have termed real color. I'm not sure what other kind of color there is. However, the scanner also automatically measures shades as it scans, which is an excellent feature. I will tell you that Conrad and I have agreed that the shade scanner is very good, but at this time, we don't feel it's going to take the place of an excellent digital photo. So you still need your camera. But it gives you a very good starting point to pick a shade. In addition, there is an intraoral camera that allows us to take HD photos. This is certainly not intended to replace the intraoral camera. However, an HD photo of a prepared tooth such as this can be very valuable to Grant, who is designing my digital crowns. If he has a question on the exact location of my finish line, this HD photo can be superimposed upon my digital scan. And this assists with margin marking. And you can see in this particular case, that buccal margin stands out very nicely with the photo superimposed upon the scan. So some CAD/CAM workflows that are possible with the Trios 3 include crowns, bridges, inlays, onlays, and veneers, removable partial dentures, which is somewhat unique to this particular scanner, as well as Invisalign. So if you are an Invisalign provider like myself, the expected availability is the 4th quarter, which is now, which we hope will be literally this month. I did receive an email mentioning November, and looking forward to hearing when they're actually going to integrate it.
They launched on Monday.
They launched on Monday, according to Conrad, which is great. So I'm on the list, but I'm lower on the list, apparently. So I haven't received that yet. Some additional CAD/CAM workflows are scanning of abutments in the upper left photo. You are seeing some intraoral scan bodies there, which are used to scan implants. We have the ability to do virtual diagnostic wax-ups, which is wonderful and much more efficient than the standard wax technique from the past. If you would like to do a lab-fabricated post and core, it can do it. And there are also some software add-ons, including the Trios Practice Lab, the 3Shape Implant Studio, and Trios Orthodontics. So next we'll jump into a digital crown from start to finish. This particular patient presented to the office with this upper right molar, with a large MOL amalgam, significant distal recurrent decay, as well as a fracture in that area. So what we do is we start with a scan of the entire pre-op quadrant. We scan the opposing quadrant, and we go ahead and scan the bite registration. And all this, of course, can be done while the patient is getting numb. We then prepare the tooth, we pack our retraction cord, we return to our pre-op scan, we digitally erase the compromised tooth, and then we can go in and simply scan the prepared tooth. The beauty of this is you already have all the information you need in the quadrant, so you can focus on the most important task at hand, which is getting great margins on the prepared tooth in your scan. So I show this because the Trios does have the ability to give us a monochromatic view. And what we have found is switching between the color and the mono does sometimes show us different details along the finish line. This helps when we're evaluating to ensure that we've captured the finish line very accurately. And finally, we'll finish up the scanning with, again, an intraoral photo of the buildup and crown prep so that that can be superimposed on the scan if necessary. And then Grant works his magic and begins the digital crown design process. So I'm going to finish up with some scanning clinical tips. The first is, of course, isolation is critical to these procedures, as with all dental procedures. You obviously need to retract the tongue, cheek, and lips, and to keep these materials out of the image. On the left-hand side, you're seeing the Optergate, which is useful for full arch scanning, although we find that this is not necessary, although I know numerous Trios users that love to use this to retract the cheeks and lips. My go-to isolation device is the Isolite because I do a lot of single tooth crowns, and this is fantastic for quadrant scanning. So some scanning clinical techniques include scan in a methodical way to acquire data on the first pass, which minimizes the need to repeat missed areas. Obviously, with practice, scanning can become as fast as making conventional impressions. With respect to education, of course, you'll be interested in shortening your learning curve, and you can gain info from equipment suppliers as well as your colleagues. There's many great videos related to the Trios on YouTube from 3Shape itself, as well as 3D BioCAD, which is a supplier, of course. There's also a couple of excellent Facebook groups. And I know for 3M users, there's also a fairly large community of users. And again, CEREC and CERECdoctors.com is probably the largest and most well-established user group of sharing tips and tricks. So there's a lot of good resources, regardless of the scanner you invest in, if you really want to embrace this technology. Of course, with integration, you're going to schedule some open-ended appointments for your first few cases as you practice and develop your technique. And ideally, scanning should be delegated to staff members. This is a basic principle of Gordon Christensen that I do follow in my own office. So dental assistant 2s, DA2s, are permitted to do digital scanning. And this is a lot of words, but just focus on the fact that dental assistants can scan. However, you as the dentist are ultimately responsible for the quality of the final restoration, whether it is a crown or another prosthesis. So that is in the Dental Practice Act, and I did verify this with Casey Good at the North Carolina State Board of Dental Examiners as well, and she was kind enough to verify that exact fact. So there's no doubt that you can train your staff, and I highly encourage you. My assistants love this device, and it's added a new element to their basic day. Finally, this particular slide goes out to both Matt and Grant. And in this particular slide, I'm showing the gingival retraction technique that I use, and I think this is a great slide whether you have an intraoral scanner or you just want to take excellent PVS impressions. So I like a 2-chord technique, and my preference is a number 1 chord first, followed by another number 1 or another number 2 on top of that. We pull the top cord and ensure that bottom cord is completely below the finish line, 360 degrees around the prepared tooth, and then we immediately proceed to scanning. What we found with the Trios is scanning works much more efficiently with the bottom cord and the sulcus. If you pull both cords, you have an empty pocket of air within the sulcus, and this does seem to confuse the scanner a bit. So keeping one cord at the base of the sulcus provides a bottom reference point for the scanner. Obviously, margins in other areas must be clearly visible and free from pooled fluids such as blood and saliva for accurate detail. And I borrowed this image. Those are not my crown preps. Those are Frank Spears crown preps. So if you want a dentist to model your crown preps after, he's the one. And that diagram is his as well. He's a great clinician for restorative dentistry. Finally, if we actually accomplish the type of gingival retraction that I showed, we can see very crisp and clear margins on our printed models that Absolute is constructing for us. And even though we are doing intraoral scanning and constructing crowns digitally, we are still using printed models. We could certainly technically go model-less at any point, but Conrad and I both agree that we all still enjoy the comfort of models because that's what we're used to. So in this particular slide, you're seeing working models mounted on a plastic articulator, which allow the lab to verify the occlusion, and then your standard solid pore model that you can verify proximal contacts with. I also enjoy the printed models because it allows me to really evaluate how good was the scan that I gave to the lab. And the printed models are really of excellent quality. So if we compare one of these digital crowns on a printed model versus the appearance in the mouth, you'll see things obviously look virtually identical, which is the goal here. And lastly, this is my 15-second infomercial for why an intraoral scanner.
All right, now bite down. And, oh. Breathe through your nose. Just breathe through your nose.
So just remember, breathe through your nose. Thanks for your time and attention. Thank you, Frank. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr. Cook. So our next speaker, I'm honored to have Dr. Edson. He qualified from UNC with the DDS and BS in '78, studied under Pankey Dawson, is currently a COIS instructor in Washington State, is that right? Clinical instructor, restorative and implant dentistry for 29 years in his private practice in Lenore, and clinical associate professor, group practice director at UNC Chapel Hill. We've worked with Dr. Edson for many years at the school. It's an honor to be a part of that practice as well, and we're very excited. So Dr. Edson said, I'm going to talk, if a dental student can use it, so can you. So we're excited to see what you have to say. Thank you, Dr.
All right,
Edson.
okay. All right, well, get rolling here. Welcome, everyone. I'm very happy to be here, and thanks to Absolute for always sponsoring this evening. It's always really good. So what I'm going to talk about tonight is how we've kind of taken the Trio scanner and introduced it into the school. And this was really a partnership. This was very hard to do. I started with CIREC in 1995, and I've spent the 9.5 years that I've been at the dental school trying to help get digital technology into the school, and it hasn't been very easy. So we started with we've been looking to upgrade our technology in student clinic for a long time. We've been working hard. We feel like some of our operatories are maybe a little dated. And then we knew that the students needed to be trained in digital technology before this day, before they left the school. So that's something that we really believe in. So after a lot of hard work by many people, that included Conrad and Absolute Dental Lab, the North Carolina Dental Foundation, last January, hey, we learned we're getting a Trios 3 scanner. So we were all really pretty excited. And that was, Conrad came in and told us that it was a done deal, and so we were literally jumping for joy at that day right there. So, and we did have an experience at the dental school. We did have a couple of, and Darren mentioned the 3M TrueDepth scanners. So what did we find in our experiences with there? And they did work, and they do work. And if some of you own the TrueDepths, there's definitely nothing wrong with the TrueDepth scanner. They certainly can work. We did find that the students didn't particularly care, and the current students that are using it more and more didn't particularly care for the powder. It's definitely got a lot less features than the Trios scanner for sure. There's a lot less that you can do with the TrueDepth scanner. Has no color, which may or may not be a factor in someone choosing a scanner. There's less options with modelless with treatment. That's a real struggle. So when we did work with Conrad and Absolute using the TrueDepth scanner, we really struggled trying to figure out a way how we could make it more efficient by not having to have 3M print our models in the Intech lab that they have up there, ship them down to Absolute, have our crowns made. I mean, it just seemed like a lot more expense and a lot of trouble. So it's a nice scanner, but we really were looking for more, and we'd had our eyes set on the Trios for a long time and trying to get it to work. But I got to say something about the title that Absolute, like what Conrad just said, title on my invitation, if a dental student can do it, you can too. Well, we do have a few people that the dental students sometimes they get a little confused, and Jordan's back there, and he was gracious enough to, this is him, he asked more questions than any dental student I've had in 9.5 years, so he really does a good job. But I think the title should probably be, dental students catch on pretty darn fast, so maybe you can hire one of these guys to teach you how to do it, because they really do catch on fast. So what did we want to know before we started using the scanner? Well, we wanted to know, could we design a totally digital workflow for our restorative needs and also for our implant restorations now, something that we could use now, not something that we had to learn to use and would grow into over a number of years. And then there's other issues anytime you do, of course, anytime you make any change at a dental school, including changing the color of the patient's napkins, it takes 4 committee meetings and on and on and on. So you can imagine what this was like and what did we do. So our school challenges were, okay, where are we going to use the scanners? I mean, we got 3 now. So where are we going to use them? Everybody wants one. But the problem is, how do we train the students to use them? How do they get to learn? Then the other problem is, how do we even get the faculty? We still have a lot of faculty that have no idea how to use a digital scanner. And, because, and not that that's a bad thing, is that just that this has grown so fast and you've got to have some interest in it. So the other thing is, at a dental school, we have a lot of students that want to use it. Most of them have no idea, even how much impression material costs, let alone what it takes to keep up with the maintenance of one of these scanners. So I'm constantly running around getting the tips put back on and making sure the mirrors are lined up and that sort of thing. And then that's the other thing, how is this taken care of? How do we check out the tips and not have them lost, because it all costs a lot of money. So, and then we wanted to ask ourselves, so is scanning really better than PVS? Well, it may not be really better than PVS, but it certainly has a lot of advantages when you start looking at scanning and what you can do. So, dental students, they're doing their crowns the first few times. Well, it's not unusual for a dental student to take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 impressions to get 1 crown done. That's not that unusual. Jordan will kind of vouch for that a little bit for us here currently. But at the same time, that's something that with the Trios, you can take your time. You can scan, you can come back, you mess up, you erase it a little bit, come back, pick it up a little bit more. We can start a procedure, we can start a crown prep, get all our scans, come back an appointment later, finish it up, taking the same scan. We can take and actually copy and redo crowns if we need to, or that sort of thing. A little bit of help with shades, like Darren said. It's not perfect, but it's fun for us. We try to take the shade, guess it ourselves, and then see what the Trios says. And so we have a little bit of a contest going on. If the Trios going to agree with us, or are we going to agree with the Trios? And of course, gaggers. That's another thing that really helps. And for the students, it allows them to really visualize their preps a lot better. And some people, when they're doing these for the first time, they're looking at them and go, ooh, wow, I guess I could be a little bit better at this. And so digital work also can be saved independently. Once the scan's done, we back it up on the hard drive. We have a crown that's missing, we call Conrad up, hey, we need this crown redone. So that's actually pretty nice. And as we know, impressions can get messy. So maybe digital is better. And this was not, so anybody that was here from this year, I won't say what class this was, but this was an actual impression. in our clinic. And I've got one that's a little bit worse, and I told this student, I said, you're number 2 in the deepest throat impression that I've seen. So for the student clinics, we know we need to be portable. We got to move it around. I mean, we've got, you might think you've got a big office, you've got 8 chairs maybe, or 6 chairs, whatever. We've got 64 operatories in our clinic that we've got to be able to move these scanners around and have everybody use it. Next question, the first thing that we thought about was, okay, how do we train our students to use the Trios? What are we going to do this? So, and this is where, and like Darren said, that Absolute has been absolutely, get that? Absolutely. Have been absolutely great. All the guys, Jason, Conrad, Aaron, everybody, I don't want to leave anybody out, but everybody's been fabulous helping us. So how did we do it? So first thing we did this summer, when this was the first group that really pushed for the Trios to be used. We did online. We have the online training videos that Darren mentioned from YouTube and Trios. We did a seminar presentation where we did a little bit of a demo. We just kind of showed the 2 scanners, how they would work. And then they come into the clinic and they practice on each other first. So they have to certify with me or Dr. Dukem there that they've done a scan on one of their classmates. And then they're ready to try a procedure on a simple patient. So this is 2 of our students this year, and this is Tran and Sanjay. And Sanjay, poor fellow, recently broke his collarbone on this past weekend. So we had to put him on injured reserve. He's in my group. And so in our fantasy dentistry, he's out for right now. So, but this was him. My video's sideways. But anyway, so these are these guys. If you turn your head like this, you can see them actually scanning. So you look like that. That's Sanjay practicing on Tran, and you can see this is his first time, and he's doing pretty well. He's doing a full mouth scan. You can see it in the background. He's actually come along pretty good. Did a pretty good job. So then we start slowly, single crowns mostly. We get a couple of students, and we kind of treatment plan the case, and we have someone to help and someone to scan. Sometimes I'll pitch in and do a little bit of a scan and help it to start with to show them a little bit. And then the student goes in and starts scanning and gives it a try. And, I'm like a little father kind of hovering over, making sure everything's good. But really, I've learned that I don't need to be there. These guys pick this up fast. So they see me do it once. They're like, Dr. Edson, go away. We got it. So they start going to town and start doing some of the scans. So, and I will not go too much, but as a dental school, I mean, definitely wouldn't be a good night if I didn't tell you what the literature says a little bit. And Darren did cover a little bit. So we always want to be evidence-based. We're at the dental school. So, and this is a little bit, I'll just kind of blow through this because Darren talked about this. Digital impressions, conventional impressions, both are very adequate to do crowns. No problem there. And this is the same study that Darren showed where it looked at the different scanners. The Trios came out was the most accurate, but importantly too, the conclusion was that all the scanners really produce clinically acceptable results. So it's down to the features and down to your preference, and you don't want to have too much disagreement. But Syracusers, they're very proud of their system. It's a very good system. I started with that system, but they're all at the end of the day will do nice scans. So let's look at a few student cases. These are from this past fall that we've done in the student clinic. So here's one, and this was one of the first ones that we did, and I have to say this is when we actually were in the very beginning of doing the Trios scanning. And this was when we had a partial, had anterior teeth. Patient doesn't want to go without their teeth. They had a temporary, they had the temporary made, they lost the temporary, because they had to have a surgery and they were out of the clinic, which can happen at the dental school. And so the problem list was the number 15 had been prepared, never been completed, and the tooth was still good, but the person this person had a partial that fit to this particular tooth. So the problem raises the problem. How do we do this without keeping the patient's partial? So what do? We call Conrad. Conrad, is this possible? Because Trios says it's not. He says, I got a way. I think we can do it. We're going to try it. We've gone and we've played and we've done this, we've done that. I just say, Conrad, let's just do it. All right. So we did the scan with the Trios, and this is the crown prep, and what we ended up doing was we scanned the tooth, Then we scan the partial in place, and then through the magic of the 3Shape software and the Trios, that's gone back to the lab. There's the opposing, and they can take that, the impression, with just this quadrant. So we didn't send the whole, we didn't send the partial, we didn't send the whole, the whole full arch. They mount this in the software, and this is kind of the leveling, the articulation. They take the tooth, the prep tooth, and they can see that, and then they superimpose the clasp over top of that. Grant designs the crown, then they, through the magic of 3Shape, they put the partial on top of the crown and complete. And it's fun to, if you ever team view with Drew or Grant or anything, the little balls that are there, that's how you stretch and pull the crown around, so they're able to do that, get it to fit. And we were all kind of holding our breath, and there it is. We put it in, voila, it actually worked, and it actually worked really well. Had good retention with the class, no adjustments on the crown, partial went right back in, everybody was happy. This was totally modelless. We didn't even print the 3D models at all. So now, some of the things that we're trying to do now is how can we keep the flow going, digital flow, with scanning for implants. So Atlantis Abutments and Astra, and we've worked with Straumann, we've worked with Astra. They have their scan bodies, and this is something that the lab will tell you is very specific. This has also been a little bit of a learning curve between the labs and us. It's very specific to the type of scan bodies and the library that they have in the software that they use, in the 3Shape software. They can print the model, complete an analog, and it goes really nice. And we've done quite a few of these, and they really work well. Here's the real quick overview of the step-by-step. You can basically do the pre-preparation. So if you like the tooth, you can scan the tooth, pre-preparation scan, and then that you can have the lab can duplicate that. And I'll show you a case where that's going to be a little bit important there. The really nice thing is that the next step is you scan the emergence profile. So now you've got, so as soon as you take the healing abutment out, you scan that really quickly, and now you've got that, and the lab has that. And then from there, just like on the crown, then that part is cut out of the scan, and now you put the scan body in, and voila, now you've got the location of the implant via the scan body. You do the bite, and then you're ready to go. And this was a case where we used this and combined with a situation where we had ortho. So we had a case where an implant was placed, and the patient, as does happen at the dental school from time to time, disappeared for quite a while. And the tooth distal to the implant drifted forward, so now we didn't have enough room to get the implant restored. So we had ortho get together, and they put a fancy little gadget in there to back that tooth up a little bit. So we scanned that. And then with the scan, then we could digitally take out the ortho wire, which turned out to be a nice thing to be able to do. And you can imagine taking a PVS with this setup would be pretty difficult. So we scanned it, we marked the place where the implant was, and then the dental student, we were consulting back and forth on how to do this. So there's the emergence profile with the brackets on, there's the opposing, and then there's the scan body. That all goes over. But now here's the cool thing. Team viewer. Try to do this with a PVS impression. So we get on the team viewer with Grant or Aaron. Hey, take a look at this. See what you think. Do we have what we need? Maybe. I can see that margin. If it's a crown, yeah, that looks good. I think I can make this work. That's invaluable. So you're not wasting time waiting for somebody to get an impression to the lab, call you up on the phone. Hey, doc, it's not good enough. This is not going to work. So that's really nice to be able to call up Absolute and have them look, and they can take over the control of our Trios computer and take a look and see how that goes. So that's what that looks like. It's online support. It's very simple, very easy, and there's the dental student doing that. That's Adam Sturdivant, Cliff's grandson. All right, and there's our secret number, so in case anybody wants to write that down. So, excuse me. So Trios communicates with the lab. Here's a little video. This is just a real quick little video just showing how this works. Let's see if this one will play. So there's the scan body, and you can see this is a similar case, ortho brackets on there. This is taken in. So now you select implant, and there's going to be a scan. There's a full arch scan of this one. So the scan is done, and you can see it picks up the ortho brackets, and as they're doing that, now that goes over to Conrad and the team here at Absolute. And so now this is one, and we did this summer where we did an implant crown in a day. We scanned it, sent it over there, and they took care of it from there. And well, actually, we put it in the next day. So 1 day turnaround. They design it, design the base, and this is another place where Conrad and Absolute's expertise. This was an implant that didn't quite have all the library for this, but we managed to fool the software and get this done. And then that's milled and put on the Vario base or the T-base, and there's the crown, and there it goes in. Boom, just like that. And now you've got a situation where in 1 day it's possible to come around, leaving all these ortho brackets on. Imagine doing this with PVS. It just couldn't happen. Okay? So a single crown case, this is a couple things I'll show you that Darren talked about, what you can do, what we like, the coming in, have the scan done. So patient comes in, you can scan the quadrant. Assistant can do that for you. And, you can mark the tooth, you get the margin. This is another student case. But here's something that I think is really great. You can lock the margin. So you've got a crown where one part of the tooth is really deep. Say the distal of a molar is really, really deep, and it's hard to get that impression. But you've gotten, or that scan, but you've gotten the rest of the tooth. So you can go in with the software, and this is something you can't do with 3M. We can lock that margin so it's no longer scannable, and then we can pack cord, we can overpack cord, whatever we need to do to expose that margin on that deeper area, pick up that margin, and then send that on to Absolute. So that really helps a lot there. Darren mentioned the HD photos. I think that's one of the best things about it because you can overlay it. You can see the preps. The students can see their preps really nice, and we can talk about them. The shade selection, we mentioned that, and that's all pretty good. There's another little case. This just happened to work out, and this was one fairly recently too. We had been doing some full arch scanning. This is a full arch case where we've, and these were just study models. So we just did this for study models. The patient calls up, hey, I've got a real problem. I just fractured my tooth. Turns out it was a vertical fracture. The tooth had to be extracted. Well, luckily we had a STL file with the full arch scan already, upper and lower already articulated. So we call over and talk to Matt this time and say, hey, what can we do? He said, well, we can print this model, and we've got the carbon flex partials. Why don't we just make one of those? So we ended up doing that. We made a carbon flex partial, fitted it in there, and there's the models, the printed models articulated. And we did one of these, and here's an example of that. We had, this looks just like that. So that was delivered rather than a flipper or an acrylic partial. We were able to extract the tooth. It turned out we couldn't immediately place the implant. We had to do a significant amount of grafting because the facial plate had been broken off. And so we ended up doing something very similar to this. Okay, I want to show one last case because this is a tough one. This is the student who did this one is here tonight. This is one of his patients that we just finished. So this is Kathy. Kathy's a photographer, and she had a new denture made. She liked her denture. I thought it looked pretty good. And so we were in the process of making her a lower partial, multiple crowns. This is a lot for a DDS4 student to do. Multiple crowns, tough situation. One crown, the crown tooth there, number 24, was very, very compromised, and so it was too risky to remove that crown, and the crown actually was okay. But we were able to do that. He did the wax up, and this is all his photos. She has the upper denture. So how do you do that? Well, guess what? You just scan it. So there you go. You got the scan of the upper denture, and now he goes in and preps all the teeth. So this is tough for a young dental student to do, but he did a great job, prepped all 6 of these teeth. We marked them all. And now the cool thing is, how do we get the bite on this? So we've got an anterior stop, we've got some posterior stops. We had a tooth that we left in there that's eventually going to be taken out in the posterior. So we used it almost like a programmer, so we didn't have to take the wax rims, PVS, boom, digitally. We got the bite, we captured it. And then we were able to take some HD photos of the margins for Grant to use to help design the case. And then this is where it gets cool. So now you can see the case at the lab. They're designing all the frameworks for the crowns and taking in consideration how we're going to do the partials. That's all kind of discussed, and here it goes. It's all through the design process. They print the models. There's the dies with the crowns that have already been done. The models come back like that. The dies are removable. And here's our crowns. They're all PFMs. And then here we go with the try-in. So they came in. That's her not quite closed together. Nice job with the crowns. This is actually, I'd say, 5 minutes after we had cemented the crowns, after he had cemented the crowns. And she'd been wearing temporaries for a good bit of time, I think, several months. So as he got into the 4th year clinic. So, but everything, there's the design, and then here's the crowns, here's the bite. Now this is what was pretty good. I think there had to do a little bit of tweaking with the bite, but for no posterior support for the most part, and just a digital bite, I thought that was pretty good. So the patient was happy with the result, thrilled, no gooey impressions were needed. And the bottom line, we're very happy with the Trio scanner at UNC. I think I can speak for the students that they've enjoyed using it, and now we've got a kind of a weird problem that we never thought we would have, is if a student comes in and really gets good at scanning and really enjoys the scanning, they've only got so many crowns they can do. What do we do with the student that, now we have to have a requirement to take a PVS impression? Because if they go to an office that doesn't have a scanner and they've never taken a PVS impression, that's going to be a problem. So, that's kind of weird. And the Trios scanner has allowed us to save time. I mean, we get our crowns back in about 6 days, so we can cement them a lot quicker. And the great fit, we've really enjoyed, and we've learned a lot. There's always a learning curve anytime you adopt this kind of technology. And I'll say that we've been extra happy, I say very happy, but I'm going to say extra very happy to be associated with Absolute. I've learned a lot in coming over and hanging out at the lab, and every time I did a team view with Drew the other day, and just amazed at what you can do with this software and how this integrates into the Trio system. So I would say the frontiers are unlimited, and so I've seen the future, and it works, folks. So that's all. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Very good. So I'm honored to introduce our next speaker. I got a little resume from Dr. Scurrier this morning and just said, been in private practice. So I called Sandy. I said, when did he qualify? And when did he go to school? And he didn't want to give me that information. I'm not sure why, but I found it on Google, Dr. Scurrier. He graduated from UNC Chapel Hill in 1989. General dentistry or residency in Antonio, Texas in 1990, Pross residency in Houston, Texas in 92. Joined UNC at Chapel Hill in 92 and left as a tenured associate professor. Private prosthodontic practice since 1999, and a close personal friend, clinician I highly respect, and I will say not an easy or early adopter of technology. So I was very surprised when Dr. Scurrier agreed about a year ago to get the Trios system. Now I will have to say this as well. When we delivered the scanner and we gave him the initial training, I said, you can do anything you want with the scanner, but if you drop it, it's not insured and the warranties doesn't cover it. So 2 weeks ago, Dr. Scurrier called and said, I dropped my scanner. So you can train, but you can't always teach. Thank you, Dr. Scurrier. We're honored to have you tonight. I'm excited to hear what you have to say.
Thank you. Appreciate it. That's the go button. This is good.
Right side, yeah.
Good evening. Thank you, Conrad, for that kind introduction. Payback is hell. We have known each other a long time, and I actually have to say that I've been very fortunate to have Absolute as a partner for over 15 years now. They have consistently made us look good, and we appreciate that on many, many cases. So here's a little email that I never really sent to Conrad. You can read it. It says, "Thank you very much for facilitating our purchase of the Trios scanner. We appreciate your comprehensive training and ongoing support. We love our Trios." And it is true. It was about December of last year. I was actually at the Amos implant meeting, and I started talking to Shine about a Trios 3 scanner. They had a show special. They locked me in, and Conrad said, "No, no, 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 no. We can do this. We're going to do this as partners." So I put Shine on hold, and sure enough, the Absolute Alliance has come together, and it has been quite a partnership, a very invaluable partnership, because this technology is fantastic. It will be in your offices, but there is a learning curve, and there is a need for support, because why? It's computer intensive. It is IT intensive. So while Conrad and the rest of the clinical team are fantastic, the guy sitting right there, Steve, is the one who's going to keep it running. And he's going to keep updating your super fast computer so that it keeps running. And so the whole team comes together to make it happen. But that's not why I put this slide up here. Dr. Horgan knows why I put this slide up here. And that is because there's one word that totally captures why I love this system, and that is send. Send. This is how we live, folks. An email, you shoot one off. Sometimes you shoot one off too quickly. You say some things you didn't mean to, but we live in a fast world, and this is how we're used to operating. And so the fact that with the Trios, all I have to do when I'm all done is hit one button and send it off to the lab, that's entirely powerful. There's no written lab script. There's no going back to the lab and looking for the pre-op diagnostics. There's no need to take if you made temporaries that you love, there's no reason to have to take an alginate impression and package that in and say, make it look like this. It's all captured chairside, and with one button, we hit send. This is how we buy things today. If you're a Prime shopper, you know this. Who's Prime in here? Oh my, yeah, exactly. It's entirely too easy. Place your order. This is how we do it. Fast, quick. And with Trios, it's just the same. Send order. That really, to me, is the power of this system, the ease with which everything comes together and is transmitted digitally to the lab just totally takes all the old systems out of it, and it is an efficient way to practice. Darren, Dr. Cook showed this slide earlier, and I think it's a really powerful slide. I was mistaken. I thought I was an early majority. I found out I was an early adopter for a change. As Conrad said, I'm not typically early to the party. In fact, I'm usually late.
I might not have told you everything.
And what?
I might not have told you everything.
We're going to get to that. Yes. So the early adopters are the ones who are going to get out there, try something new. That's why we're up here on stage talking, but you all will be here soon enough. But Darren also showed this combination slide, and I love, oops, sorry, let me go back. Go back. I love our conversation around Christmas time with Conrad was that peak of inflated expectation. No, no, no. Let me sell you this through the Absolute Alliance. Let me support you. And I'm like, okay, sure. And he beat Shine's price like a dog, and so it was easy to say yes. Sorry. But then we got the scanner in, and we started learning, and we get to that trough of disillusionment. So early adopters work through this stuff, and we did. There is a learning curve, and there will be in your office too. For me personally, I find I spend more time on my preps because this is like prepping and impressioning with this is like going from no loops to using loops with LED lighting to all of that on steroids. Oh my gosh, your preps are this big. So to me, I know for a fact I spend more time on my preparations. I know that they've gotten a lot better. I'm sure the lab technicians are going like, oh yeah, they've gotten a lot better. But that's okay. I know I'm producing a better product, a better service than I was before. Trios is a great scanner. The software sometimes can be glitchy. It sometimes won't do exactly what you want it to do, and that's with any technology. We get something in our office, and we see it, and then somebody has a great idea, like, hey, can we scan under a partial? Can we make this crown? Or can we do this or do that? And sometimes the software can't keep up with what we want it to do. So that's a limitation sometimes, but they keep improving. And then we had some model and implant scanning issues with our implant scan bodies, but we've worked through that. So we've worked through all those issues, so you're welcome. If you buy now, it's going to be a lot easier to do, because now we're in that slope of enlightenment. And hopefully into that plateau of productivity, hopefully seeing that consistent ROI on a pretty significant purchase. Patient response, yeah, wow. They like it. They are impressed by it. They love seeing their teeth in full color. Sometimes they don't, but that's okay too. We know that that's an education for them as well. A little co-diagnosis never hurt anyone. And frankly, this will become the norm. Digital scanning is going to become the norm. I don't know when, but I would say in less than 7 years, the PVS market will be flat to nil, because this is the norm. I think we have improved clinical outcomes, again, through improved visualization. The chance to check for digital draw and digital clearance on the machine before you hit the send button is really powerful on your bridge work, on your multi-unit cases, on your tight bite cases. There are diagnostics within the system where you can absolutely see, does it draw? Do I need to go back and re-prep? Is there a place I need to touch up a little bit? And do I have adequate clearance for the restorative material planned? And it tells you that with a click of a button. And I would think we have scanners out here, right? So hopefully you can play with some of those diagnostics, because again, it improves clinical dentistry. The other things we're going to talk about tonight is digital diagnostic waxing and case planning. Frankly, I think a lot of you do big cases anyway. Some of you, Darren says he does a lot of single unit. I think Darren's a great clinician. He's going to be doing a lot more multi-unit that he might not have tackled before, and so will you, because of what this system offers. We're going to talk about enhanced occlusal outcomes through better planning and improved bite capture, and then some other treatment options. That's what we're going to talk about tonight. Digital case design. Heather, some of you may know, she's a dental assistant in the area. She said I could use her picture. Came to the office a few weeks ago, and the veneer on number 8 was cracked. And the crown on number 9 is old. And that veneer has been re-cemented a couple of times. And you can see the second or third re-cementation, it's gotten out of kilter, right? And she's had some recession. Well, there's lots of ways to deal with this. There's lots of analog ways to take Heather right to the chair and give her 2 crowns that are similar. But the opportunity to do a pre-op scan and on the computer see that we have absolute symmetry between 8 and 9. We've got the edges lined up. We've beefed up the contours in that recession area a little bit so the crown has a little bit of, the temporary crown has a little heft to it. The opportunity to do that with nothing more than your assistant taking a pre-op scan and about a 2-minute phone call to Grant or Dries saying, yeah, that looks great. Print that, give me a shim, I'll have her in next week and we'll get her temporized. And so here you can see the blue is what her pre-op was, and then you can see the plan beneath that. under that. And you can see we pulled it back. So there's a lot of stuff that, we might have done chair side, just recontouring an over-contoured temporary crown if we just took an alginate of that and didn't do any pre-op diagnostics. All of us could reshape that in the mouth, but we don't have to. It's quick. It doesn't take any time to get the diagnostics done ahead of time, so the temps are perfect. Then the crowns are perfect. You can start to see, where the contacts are going to be, what the occlusal patterns are going to be. It's really powerful. Another patient who showed up in the past few months, he's not exactly happy with the outcome. They're a little bright, they're a little big. And oddly enough, also he doesn't like the lowers because he doesn't like the black triangles on the bottom. So, okay, this is a person you can tell has been to the dentist a lot, and he's been to multiple dentists a lot. So let's start to see what can we do to get this right. Well, I don't want to go in and take off 6 units of zirconia without a plan that I can improve on that. And yes, all of you are saying, yeah, I can do better than that. But I want to know it up front. So I'm going to go ahead and take my pre-op scan and also look at the occlusal plane in the lower arch. We see a little swale there. We know that those lower anterior teeth are a little tall. So let's go ahead and fix that so we have room for the appropriate restorative material. Again, the blue is the pre-op and translucent. You can see that our plan is to bring those lower anteriors down, not dramatically, but appropriately, to get the right plane, the right occlusal scheme. There's the blue on top is the pre-op. There's the plan in white below it. Okay, this looks better. Those canines are not ginormous. We're starting to get into the zone now. What else do we want to do? Well, we can start looking at what our occlusal scheme is. We know we've got some tight bite issues here. Dries was helping me on this case, and he showed me where the centric contacts were going to come in, and I was like, Dries, you know I don't want centric contacts on my anterior teeth. You know I'm a long-centric, power-centric guy. And he's like, Dr. Scaria, I know you don't want centric contact on your anterior teeth. I was like, good, get rid of them then. Dries and I have been working together for a long time as well. It's a love thing. We also talk about the midline incisal embrasure a lot. For 15 years, amazingly enough. We have different ideas on what that should look like, but we're getting there. Anyway, the design is fun, it's quick, it's a team view, it's in, it's out, it's 5 minutes, and it's not you, and it's not wax. It's happening. So that's all I have on that case. The next thing I want to skip to is occlusal capture. This, to me, is the power of one of the great powers of this machine, this technology. So this patient shows up 4 o'clock on Thursday afternoon. He's a referral, like a bonus referral from a periodontist in town. And the periodontist said, yeah, patient has these 3 implants that are ready to restore. I don't know if the general dentist didn't want to do it or he didn't have, but can you restore these? Why, yes, I can. On Thursday afternoon at 4 o'clock. I can. Now notice, on this case, where the implants are, I've got the opposing occlusion. Where the molar is, on the opposite side in the maxillary arch, I have no stop. So all I have on this case is anterior stops, no posterior stops. Trios captures that bite. Dead. I'm seeing the head shaking. It captures it dead on. So put the implant scan bodies in, 4:10 in the afternoon, treatment plan signed, right? We got through that. Thank you, Sandy. My staff is here. Treatment plan signed, yeah, that's what it's going to cost. Okay, good, let's go ahead and get started. Scan body impression, emergence profile impression, take a little shade, send it off, and next visit, custom abutments and crowns. ready to go in. And I don't have pictures. I wish I did. These look like they are Peter K. Thomas waxed with 3 points of contact on every centric holding cusp. It was truly phenomenal. And it is what we're getting used to in terms of occlusal capture with trios. Another patient comes in, has anterior veneers, they're breaking, chipping, they've been patched, yada, yada. And they're a little thick. And he's always thought they were a little thick. And he's got wear facets on those anterior teeth. So we have a little more planning to do here. We're going to talk about opening him up a little bit because we're not doing, these were the second set of veneers. In my office, we're not doing a third set of veneers. It's just not predictable enough for me. I don't know what I'm going to find underneath there. At his age, these are going to crowns in the anterior, but we have to open them up. So again, pre-planning, deciding how much vertical to open, but then getting to it, prepping, temporizing, using the plan, using the shims provided, and then again capturing. I think Conrad's going to show us, he's gotten us even more efficient. I did the posterior segments in one shot, and then came back and did the anterior segments when the posterior crowns were in. And again, spot on centric contacts with this system. And that's what we really, really are so impressed with. And our patient is quite happy when we're all done. Duracetal or carbon flex partials. Who's done them? Who's done one of these? Sorry, the lights are bright. Not a lot of hands going up. A few hands are going up. They are, they're not cast partials. And we don't know about their longevity. I tell patients, I can make you a cast partial, a metal partial with clips and clasps. That's going to last a long time. But I can make you something that many of my patients have found to be much more comfortable because, here's the other thing I tell my patients. No patient ever comes back with a bilateral distal extension mandibular RPD and says, "Oh, Dr. Scurry, I love my partial." Do they say that? No, they don't. So I tell them, that's the truth. I'm going to make you partial. It's going to fit well. It'll be stable. But I can't tell you you're going to love it because you're probably not going to. So we're doing more of these Duracetal or carbon flex partials, mainly for comfort, but also for aesthetics. And we tell patients it's not a 20-year partial, but it is a really good outcome. And you may actually be able to wear this and enjoy it. So this patient comes in. Do I have a pointer on here? No. Uh-oh. Sorry. There we go. She's lost a bridge from, I think it's 19 to 20, and she needs a partial fast. She's going on vacation or whatnot. And so we took the Trios out, scanned her up, and you can see we've got a distal extension on the right side. And we capture what we can of that, which is quite a bit. It's an amazing device for capturing soft tissue palate distal extensions. It really does capture quite a bit. Sent off to the lab, partial fabricated. They come in tooth-colored frameworks, and you can customize the shade to the patient. They come now in a pink framework where you can put clear clasps on a pink framework. And they also come in a translucent framework, sort of like your Valplast. The thing I like better about these than Valplast is they are eminently more adjustable. I mean, these things adjust with any burr you have. You don't need any special burrs. They're also repairable, and they're also easy to take acrylic. So they really are much more user-friendly and much more, there's a lot more bailout potential. If they lose a tooth, you can add a tooth to this partial. If they break a clasp, the lab can shoot a new clasp into this partial. So there's a lot of options here that we can do. But what I wanted to point out is, and again, I don't have a pointer, but if you can see on this lower right part of the screen, that's retromolar pad. Okay, we captured all the soft tissue we needed to have a very nice, very stable partial for this patient. Another patient came in. This patient has a lower flexible partial that we made 5 years ago, and she's on the, I'm going to get my teeth when I can afford it plan. Lovely young lady from Sanford. She comes to see us for her carbon flex partials. Her dentist in Sanford does her restorative. He decided not to restore that molar in the maxillary arch, which is fine. I would have liked to have seen something else in there. He said, "No, that's going to be fine." And I was like, "Okay." So we're getting ready to make her a maxillary carbon flex partial. The 5-year on that lower is fantastic. This is a partial she loves. So again, we can scan the entire palate very quickly, very accurately. Conrad hasn't taught me how to design on the machine yet. I'm sure there's a way to do draw. I haven't found that button. So I actually printed out a photo, drew my design, took pictures of it, and plugged it back into the, I'm in a digital world. I am not sending anything analog anymore. So we drew pictures, sent it back through Trios, and sent it off to the lab for a partial to be fabricated there. The thing that amazes me about the tooth-colored and the pink, which are milled out of pucks of material, is the fit. It's just phenomenal how well digital products, for lack of a better term, fit. And so that's what we've gotten used to as well. And as somebody who does a fair bit of removable, that's really critical. I just put this in. This is a 3-year follow-up on a patient with a carbon flex partial. This is the translucent. So this one's actually injection molded, not milled, and back then they weren't even milling anyway. And it's looking a little age. She still loves it. It's still doing its work. The clasps are still, they're not invisible, but they're satisfactory for the patient. So, we're starting to see 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. They don't break. They do hold up. And patients really do like them better. I'm surprised. So what about digital dentures? That's the next question people ask. And I'm here to tell you that we are a digital denture provider in our office. We work with Avident for that. This is not something that Trios is able to do, or most intraoral scanners are able to do yet. We've tried both digital systems, Avident and Paladent. We've chosen to go with Avident. It's still a conventional impression, conventional bite records, but then everything is scanned into the system. My interns are here. There are scanning experts in our office. They've learned how to scan everything in, and they're training the staff on how to scan in. And the thing about digital dentures is the same positive we see with Trios, with all digital workflow, is the fit. Mandibular dentures on no Rigidals, the Matt Wood no Rigidals. Remember that? No Rigidol? So on those patients, Karen gets it, thank you. On those patients, I've never been a provider who said, you need implants or I'm not making you a denture. I don't think we have that luxury. I think there's some practices that go down that path. But we are making a lot more mandibular, no Rigidol dentures, flat ridge dentures that have a little bit of suction. It is just phenomenal, the fit that we're seeing from a digital workflow. And really so very excited about that. And again, with any digital workflow, the opportunity to archive, the opportunity to print a denture on command with that send button, or that place your order now button, and have a second denture, a duplicate denture, or a denture in a couple days if they lose a denture is just phenomenal, especially for that patient population that's getting older, going into assisted living, going into the hospital. You've all had your patients lose their prostheses at the hospital. So again, with a digital workflow, we're able to replicate and duplicate what we do without saying, oh, you lost your dentures, I'll have to get you in, wheel them in a wheelchair. 5 appointment. It's just so much more efficient. So we're very excited about that digital technology. Conrad told you I was going to save that for the end of the presentation. Yes. Okay, here's the true story. I actually did drop the scanner the first day. I didn't drop it so much as I knocked it off its pod. It was sitting on its ledge about here, and I was not happy. But it worked. Nothing happened. It was like, whew. So then we had a rule in the office. The scanner is either in your hand or on the pod. It's never on a desktop. It's never on a countertop. It's in your hand or it's on a pod. And the rule we forgot that Absolute told us, but we forgot, was a tip should always be on the scanner. Either the actual scanning tip with the little mirror on the end of it, or a dummy tip like this. That's a dummy tip that's actually just a cover, a protective cover. Well, we found ours. It was in a drawer. We found it a little too late because one of my assistants, who's awfully good with her infection control, was wiping the cord and tink, hit the tip, hit the glass lens against the countertop. Shatter. So my scanner is currently in where? Poland. But the Absolute Alliance has been on it, and they have come by and scanned for us when we had cases to scan, most times, been available, and they have a loaner in the office now. That is support, and we appreciate it very much. We value this partnership. So those are your tips. If you are in the purchase in your market, those are the rules for the scanner. Just want to put in a quick plug for Troza. We all do different things. I know all of you give back in many ways, but if you're looking for a way to give back, we've been a TROSA partner for several years now. I love making dentures, so we take a TROSA patient every quarter. Dr. Marquez, my associate, and I do, and we do removable, whether it's partials or dentures for TROSA patients. And these are folks who are putting their lives back together, and it's awfully hard to go get a job without teeth. But they need a lot more providers, and Sandy is here from our office, and she can put you in contact with TROSA if that's something you feel called to help these folks in your office. It's one of those things where dentistry's fun when it's not for money, and it's not for money. And so we've really valued that, and I would encourage you to do the same. And that's about it. I want to thank you for your referrals. I want to thank Conrad for the invitation. I'm honored to be up here with these guys doing such a great job tonight. And I will look forward to seeing you out in the lobby and answering your questions or answering them on stage tonight. Is that what we're going to do next? Oh, and then we have to listen to Conrad talk too. Mm-hmm. Sorry. Do I have to introduce you?
Yeah. You can. Thank you. So the moment has come, and I thought to myself, wow, I'm going to follow up on these three esteemed clinicians, which I have a lot of respect for, and how do I do that? And do I introduce myself, or do I have somebody else? And I was like, it's not really much to say there, came from South Africa, and those kind of things. And so I went to Express in the mall, Express, the place that dresses you. And there's this guy in the corner, and I said, I've got a little conundrum. I'm speaking after three highly esteemed clinicians, and I gotta hold my own. He said, well, if you can't outsmart him, outdress him. So I show up tonight, and I look at you guys, and I didn't even address you, unfortunately, but I'm going to do my best. I know a bathroom break is probably in the cards, but I'm going to go fast. I want to show you a few things and just put all of this together. I'd like to once again thank John Hansel, Henry Netta, and Lee Vaughn for sponsoring tonight. And although this is not a traditional implant meeting, Nobel is just about to launch a really innovative product line. And I asked them permission to show this to you guys before we actually have FDA clearance. They just cleared it in Canada, so they're very close. John, within the next few weeks, preferably, or hopefully? End of year. So I want to show you something that I think they came up with that solves one of the issues we've been dealing with. When we do implant dentistry, our biggest battle is always maintaining that tissue level. So Nobel has a system, or will have a system, called On1. And what this cures, or what this solves, is when we remove that healing cap before we go to our final restoration, we don't tear that epithelium seal out of it. And that's where this system is very handy. So what they did with this is split the system into 3 pieces. So basically the CAD abutment is now in 2 pieces. We have a subgingival part of the CAD abutment, which is the On1 part. And then we have an abutment that seats on top of that, and then our crown goes on top of that. So the base remains in place from surgery. So the surgeon will place the implant and place the On1 seal, or the collar, at surgery stage. And then from there on, we process the case. So we're working on this tissue level without breaking that epithelial seal. So if you look at this, the On1 base goes into place day of surgery, and that becomes the restorative platform. Now, when we're going to do delayed loading, we'll place that and then put a healing cap internally. So the healing cap never touches the tissue. And that's the magic of this system when it's protecting that epithelial seal. When we do immediate loading, our temporary component still sits inside. So if you look at that, kind of the evolution of implants over the last 10, 15 years, we've gone from stock abutments to CAD abutments, now back to screw-retained abutments. What this system does is it gives us almost the best of both worlds. So it's based off a stock abutment system. If you think back of the really old Straumann implants, where everything was in one. The surgeon would place the abutment and the implant. In some cases, the implant became the collar. We never had to remove anything from the tissue. We just restored the crown. Here we still have the option to go to a custom level, but we don't disturb that tissue interface. So the way we do this is we have our implant, and then we have our On1 abutment seal, or abutment interface, and then the actual abutment with the crown, and then the restorative screw that goes on top of that. Now they still give us, and this is the beauty of this system, and we're very excited to use this when it comes out, we have the option to do a tie base, which is a proprietary tie base by Nobel, and we can mill our crowns on top of that to give us a screw-retained option, or we can go with more traditional titanium if we're going to do a PFM, or we can use also a zirconia abutment in that interface. So it gives us the options that we have with CAD right now, but it allows us to protect that tissue seal. Now, because these are small components, they also came out with these little carriers. It's going to make it much easier for us to carry to the mouth, position it, screw it in, and then just remove that little component. Now, the way we do this is all the On1 abutment is placed at surgery stage. We then go ahead and do the mount. So when we do intraoral scanning, this is what tonight's about, they have a workflow for that. So instead of using a normal healing abutment, you'll use the intraoral scanning healing abutment. Now, for those of you who are familiar with 3I's ENCODE system, we place a little healing abutment on the implant, and we take an impression of that healing abutment. That gets sent off, and then we use that to position our implant. This system is one step ahead of that because it gives us the ability to do that in intraoral workflow, or intraoral scanning workflow. So you place the actual healing abutment, which is also the scanning abutment. You digitize that abutment in the mouth with your intraoral scanner, and that's what the lab uses. So if you break this down, that healing abutment becomes the actual scan flag and the healing abutment. So when we get your crown back, you remove the healing abutment, we then digitally design everything, remove the healing abutment, and place your crown. So very easy workflow, very predictable workflow, but it protects that tissue interface, and we don't ever have to remove a titanium abutment that started to bond to our tissue. So it gives us the option to do screw-retained, and we can also do cement retained. So very innovative product, and we're very excited to work with that in the new year. So I wanted to take one step back, and you probably ask yourself, you drive up here and there's a car outside full of scanning pictures, and we'll help you do this. And why did we get involved, and why did I get involved or decide to get involved with intraoral scanning? About 15 years ago, a clinician by the name of Mark Scurrier called me and said, how much do you know about Astra implants in those days? And I'm like, nothing. I'm a Brandemark guy, and this is how we've done it. And he said, no, there's a new system on the market. We're going to take implant-level impressions instead of abutment level, and we work with Nobel on a lot of these things. And I was very hesitant, and I pushed back on this because I was comfortable working abutment level. or custom or stock abutment level. And through my association with John and the guys from Nobel and people like Dr. Scuria, I made it my business to know what goes on in dental implants. And I'd like to think people had a question on implants, they thought of Conrad, and they'd like to pick up the phone and say, how do we do this? And my exceptional team behind me. Unfortunately, as the years went by, more and more labs became well-versed on implants, and I kind of lost my edge a little bit. So when intraoral scanning came out, I said, well, this might be the next evolution in our industry. So I spoke to the same Dr. Scuria just 15 years later, and this time I asked the question. I said, why don't you buy a digital scanner? And the answer was, because I don't want to get stuck with another $40,000 machine sitting in a corner that I don't know how to use. And being a businessman as well, I saw a little bit of an angle I could use. So I convinced Dr. Scuria to buy one of these scanners. Now I will say I gave you a better price, or they gave you a better price, because I actually contributed to it. I'm just kidding, I never did that. But I really wanted somebody on board that could test the technology and kind of be that bleeding edge that we needed. But what I decided to do was, if we want to have that niche going in the next 10 years, a dental lab will have to be a support structure to clinicians. I think the days of dental labs making posterior crowns, not wanting to do anterior work or not wanting to do single crowns is over. Single crowns or single posterior crowns are becoming a commodity, and dental labs have to support clinicians in other ways. So I thought to myself, if I go and educate myself on a scanner, and we did the same as Dr. Cook, we went through all the processes, which scanners would we use and why would we use it, and we came up with the Trias just because it is a true PVS replacement system. Now initially, I thought that CEREC and Trias were in competition. But the two systems are very complementary of each other. Trias is a true PVS replacement. Anything you can do with PVS, you can do with Trias. CEREC allows you to make crowns in the office, and it's very good. It's exceptionally good at that. But where CEREC struggles is with that lab communication. So if you take an impression with CEREC, it's mill related. It goes to the mill and you make your crowns yourself. When you do PVS, it goes to a lab. And I think that's the difference. So a lot of CEREC users are also now buying a PVS replacement system, which is the CEREC or the Trias. So these are very complementary systems and not really competing against each other as much as I thought. So you see all these brochures we put out, and we've got Amy and Aaron and all these people, Steve, which is a full IT. So I thought to myself, if I can find a partnership with one of these suppliers, and we ended up doing or getting into a partnership with 3D BioCAD, we can secure a good price for our clinicians, and we make sure that those prices are very competitive. And Dr. Guy, we did see scanners come down from about 50,000 to mid-30,000s, and we're expecting that to see that go down even further. But be your support system. So when you pick up the phone and you don't know why the scanner is not working, I have a team available to help you with that. Now, we don't make money, we don't sell the scanner, but what we would like to do is be your support structure, and through that, hopefully, get the work in return. Now, the advantage for you to go through the alliance is I absolutely guarantee you, if you buy one of these scanners, you will be able to clinically integrate it. And as I stand here, I think I have enough people here that I've shown this in the past. My team are all certified Trias trainers, and they will be there at a moment's notice. And if I say a moment's notice, it's seconds. It's not a 1-800 number. You don't have to call Northern California and they're still in bed at 9 a.m. And we're going to be there for you. So I was telling Dr. Aziz and Dr. Howard, I'm going to show one of Dr. Hadji George's cases. Now, when you go home tonight and you tell Dr. Hadji I showed his case, it's not all his case. I didn't have all the clinical pictures, so I'm going to show Dr. Hadge's case, but I'm going to morph it with two other cases we did in the same way to get to the final. So I'm going to run through a difficult case. And I thought, do I show a partial case? And I know Dr. Edson would speak on that. So I thought, what's the toughest thing we do? And it's a full upper-lower rehab. When we do this, the biggest challenge we deal with is aesthetics and not losing the bite, not giving the patient something in the day of delivery. They go, yeah, it looks nice, but I can't close my mouth. So predictability is what this system offers us. So 99, I show up, had lots of hair, 2 boxes in a suitcase, and ready for the new world, built the American dream. and I had literally no furniture. So I drive down this road, and I see an IKEA store. I'm like, that looks pretty cool for something I need. So I walk in, and they got couches and everything I didn't bring from Africa. So I buy a couple of couches, buy a couple of cabinets, and the guy says, pull your truck in the back. And I'm like, my truck's not big enough to put a couch in. And he goes, no, everything comes in a little box. They give a couch in a box, you get a bunch of screws, a few directions, and you go build the couch yourself. So that couch is still somewhere in my backyard. The problem with what we deal with today as dental technicians is figuring out how to put all of this together. Now, I want to ensure you Absolute will be the leading edge in this technology, because if we're not, we're probably not going to be around much longer. So the guarantee that I give you, I can back up what you're giving us intraorally with products and services that will make your life more predictable and a little bit more manageable. So the digital wax up is where it all starts. And my partner, my business partner, Drew, is the one that takes care of these things when we deliver this virtually online. So we look at a case, and this is one we did with Dr. Yarbrough at UNC, and that's the patient's actual pre-op. Dr. Scurria spoke to this. I'm not going to spend too much time. We do a digital wax up, and we bring you in and say, what did you see chairside that you would like to change? It gives us the ability to switch between the pre-op and the suggested wax up. So this is our first wax up. We're basically just going to get the patient to a point where we can restore from. Because if we start with a pre-op and we jump to the finals, you know that's when we get those surprises, and that's what we're trying to get away from. So there's our pre-op, and there's our suggested diagnostic wax up. So what we do now is we go to our milling units and we mill a set of PMMA temps. Same as we did 2 or 3 years ago, we would make those with acrylic. We'll send them in a jig and you'll transfer them to the mouth. So we deliver these delivery trays to help you make chairside temps. Now I will admit to you, this is the one link that's still broken. How do we transfer our diagnostic wax up pre-op, before you've prepped the patient? How do we get that to the mouth predictably? And as you know, if we just make you a little suck down, you go to the mouth, you fill it up with acrylic, it's a little shaky, you're never sure if you're in the right position. So we've come to the realization that our initial wax up, our initial reline temps, is just what it is. It's just that phase to get us closer to where we want to be. So this is Dr. Hadjigeorge's case, and that's our relined temps. So we gave the patient something that they could say, yeah, this looks pretty good. We've figured out a lot of these issues. We let the patient walk with that for a few days. We make sure that everything is comfortable. And this is where the predictability comes in. We make these temps in 4 quadrants. So we were able to split the left and the right side. And we've all done this. When we do these big cases, keeping and maintaining that vertical position is what's so crucial. So the way we used to do this is keep the left side temps in, put an acrylic jig on the right side, vice versa, and we do it the other way. So when I did this case with Dr. Hadjigeorges, I said, let's make sure that this principle or this protocol actually works. This is the first full rehab case we ever attempted with the scanner. So we ended up with a patient with a left and a right side analog bite, and they verified. So we had the patient go back in and out, and we were able to verify. So the question was, how will we get from that position into our digital scanning? Now remember, the advantage of intraoral scanning is that the crowns are made off the actual digital file. And Dr. Cook spoke about this earlier, is the accuracy of the scanners. Those scanners are extremely accurate. But traditionally, or historically in our industry, the weakest link in a dental lab is the models. Everything we fabricated up to maybe the last two years has been model-based. So you take all this time taking a great impression, and I've seen, working with the grad prof students, 5, 6 impressions, and we pour 5 or 6 different ones to make sure we get the best one. In a dental lab, the entry-level position is model section. Those guys work really hard, but they don't always understand what we're doing. So not mixing the stone correctly, or maybe dropping a die. Or even when we trim your dies, you spend all this time giving us a perfect margin, and somebody short trims a die, and all that hard work is gone. Now that's all done digitally. So when we get this impression in the lab, that's what we're working on. So we're effectively working in the mouth. We're never coming out of the mouth and then putting the crowns back in. So by the time these crowns are finished, they mate with the model, and that's when we check it. So what we do, and this is where the true beauty of the system comes in, we scan or we digitize the upper and lower temps, and we know that patient is comfortable in that vertical position. So we've worked out most of our issues in our temporary phase. Once we've scanned our temps, the machine has the ability, I'll just go back one slide, and you can see on the bottom right, to delete the data where those temps are. Once we do our preps, we now basically take the temps out of place and we replace them with the preps. So the best way to describe how we work in digital is like taking a pre-op model and mounting it on a Hanau or a Danaher articulator, set our pin to 0, and we know that's the vertical we're looking for. Now we take the model off the articulator and we prep the entire case and we put it back on the articulator and close it to the same vertical. That's what the machine allows us. That vertical is maintained and that vertical stays there. So if you think about more general application, we're doing 3 or 4 implant crowns on a terminal extension. That's the hardest bite to capture. When you take a digital impression, that bite remains the same, and that becomes predictable. And that's the case you showed, Dr. Scuria. Everything goes straight in the mouth. So now in the lab, and this is where Dries and my team really finds this valuable, we can take our digital impressions and we can play between the patient's pre-op and what they liked, and we know that vertical is right, and we can work back and forth with what the patient had versus what we're looking for. So this gives us the ability to predictably do our wax-ups. Now, if you look at this, there's the digital scan in our design software, and you can see that's Dries's suggested diagnostic wax-up. The biggest challenge we've had in the lab industry for the last probably 20 plus years is taking a diagnostic wax-up and giving it to a patient accurately. How do we transfer what you saw and what you sold the patient on back to the patient's mouth? Now, if you look at that, the white parts is where Drew changed the contours of the patient's original temp. So that's where we felt we could do better. And then the rest of that is the actual original patient scan transferred back to the mouth. So very, very predictable, and we know exactly where we are with this. There you can see the blue is the pre-op, and then the white is what we decided is going to be our final delivery. So from that point on, we mold the crowns in our digital, in our mills. We like to use our Envision material, which gives us the ability to jump clinically back to that. So a very predictable delivery almost every time. The system allows us to capture what we have preoperatively. Now, another thing that we highly recommend, before we go to our final crowns, we have the ability to do a transitional phase. These transitional PMMAs will be milled from the final design file. So what we did with Dr. Haji George's case, we milled the entire case, upper and lower rehab, in PMMAs. A transitional PMMA is about $30. So even a big case like that came up to about $600. So we could deliver the entire full rehab before we went to the final for about $600. The patient walked with that for 2 or 3 months. They come back, they say, I like this. We redigitize that case, and the final delivery is exactly what the patient approved. The technology is so accurate. If we do single crowns in that transitional phase, you can take number 8 out of the mouth and take the final crown number 8 off the model, and you can place it next to those, and it will match perfectly. And that's the difference. When you do your final delivery, you know it's going to be a predictable day. So, I'm going to end with this. And for those of you who were at the conference last year, yeah, Jason, a picture speaks 1,000 words. Now, you can see he was looking at the screen while we took a picture of him doing that. And that's Jason learning how to scan himself. So last year, I found this insane speed video online, which showed this guy taking a digital impression on himself, which was questionable. The problem was the background music was really questionable. So for about 6 minutes in my presentation, people were laying on the ground laughing and tears coming out of their eyes. So we decided that we will not do that to Jason. I'm not going to have him scan himself. So part of my team, we now have Erin that does our internal support on this, and we have Amy and Peyton, who are DA2 assistants, that are qualified on this. So the scan that I'm going to show you was done by Amy, and it'll show you the efficiency of this machine. And then I'll show you why the link is so good on the background with the support. So if Steve runs that for us. So I had Amy scan somebody just so we can see the efficiency of the insane speed. So about 3 months ago, Triage launched what they call insane speed. The beauty of the Triage system is that everything is software driven. So instead of having to purchase a new camera every 2 years because there's a better technology, the software upgrades is what makes this machine efficient. If you think about Triage, this is the second or actually the third generation Triage. The Triage Color, which was the previous generation, has been on the market for 7 years. It's bigger than the current one, but you can do exactly the same thing with the Color as you can with the Triage 3. Now, today technology is outpaced so quickly. So it's very tough for me to stand here and say 2 years from now, this will still be the best scanner. Probably not. But is this scanner the one that has the ability to stick around for many, many years? It definitely does. Now, as you can see, we did upper and lower full arch scans, and the efficiency now is so fast that we can scan full vestibules and through the palate. And Dr. Scurria touched on this earlier. Initially, the scanner wasn't fast enough to make big jumps in a dentulous area. So if you had 5 or 6 teeth missing, the scanner couldn't make that jump. We can now scan full arch, edentulous uppers, because we have enough landmarks. Now, we'll do some markers on it, but it is one of those things now. It's fast enough that I think we've gone through that learning curve, and the efficiency of these scanners helps. So now she's taking the bite, and you can see once the scanner realizes where it are, it places the 2 models in position. Now what's nice, like I pointed out with the previous case, that position remains the same. So when we do single crowns, to make sure that everything is there where it needs to be, we'll have the patient close, take the upper, take the lower, and then scan the bite before we prep the crown. Then prep the crown, and the machine automatically mounts the case. So if you see 1 minute 32 seconds to scan an upper and a lower with the bite, full arch impressions. With the previous generation software, it took about 2.5 minutes to scan a single upper. So the machine effectively is 75% faster now than it was just 2 months ago. So I think the true magic of this comes in with the support and the lab communication it allows us. Now the best thing, my first job as a lab technician was next to a prosthodontist. I worked in his little closet in the back, and all I did all day was go to the office, look at the patients, talk to the patients, and then at 5 o'clock when he went home, I started doing my job. Now unfortunately, that's not a very efficient way to do it, but TeamViewer allows us to be there, and we can be there every time you have a patient in the chair. So I had Greg and them shoot a little video on how TeamViewer helps you as a clinician. Now, TeamViewer is loaded on the Triage system. What we do with our Triage systems, the ones we deliver through 3D BioCAD, is we load an instant messaging service. So what TeamViewer does is it allows the clinician to hit the TeamViewer button and text in, I have a question. The TeamView or the instant messaging shows up on 13 technician benches in the office. It shows up on Jason, Amy, Aaron. You say, I have a question. We log into your system, and we take control of your system remotely. So while you're chairside and you have a question on a case, you can be busy with the patient, and we can manually erase a margin. And we can say, can you please reshoot number 12 mesiofacial? Clinician goes back, shoots that margin, we evaluate it, and then we give you the go-ahead. So the guarantee the system gives us is that you don't have a chance of having to take a new impression. So if you look at bigger cases, when you take these really big cases, what's the biggest difference? When you take an impression and that impression's in the mouth for 2 or 3 minutes, you're just praying that you got all the margins. When you're taking a full rehab impression, I can imagine the stress that goes through something like that, because if you miss one margin, how do you recover? So what's nice about the system, let's say we take our initial bite and we're at a closed vertical with our pre-op. You place your temporaries and you open the patient up. We can delete the initial bite and redigitize the bite to the new vertical. If we restore at the closed vertical, the software, the digital software lab side, allows us to open that in our software. Now, the battle we've been facing with 3Shape is they're catching up. And I think we're at that phase, as Dr. Scuria said, where we're starting to see better advances. So initially what they did, because they're computer programmers, the bite was opened like that instead of on a hinge. So when we open the bite and the patient goes to close, you ended up like this. So we have the ability now to do that in our software. And that, I think, is where the transitional PMAs come in very handy, because we can print the entire case, we can open up 1.5 millimeters, and you can bring it back to where the patient is comfortable, and we can redigitize that bite. So that really makes a big difference for us as a team to make sure we get the correct bite.
Dr. Burrow? Conrad, you and I have had this discussion with before, and along the same lines of what was just asked, taking the face bow, in essence, getting that, trying to transfer that. I know it's a development, but getting the pitch and yaw, basically the occlusal plane, and just this issue, because what you just said, we can adjust the PMAs, but what that really amounts to, I believe, what you're saying is that as clinicians, we have to go in and grind or adjust on those PMAs until we have it just right.
Yeah, I think the PMA allows us to get to that point. Now, if you think about a traditional face bow, there is no face bow transfer. Now, I will say this, what we do is and that's why I asked Dr. Hadjigeorgiou to take the digital or the analog bites for us. Now, what we did with those analog bites is that we know that's our vertical. So we transfer those models back to our SAM articulator, and then we bring our crowns into analog for the final part. Now, like Dr. Cook said earlier, we could easily go modelless on these cases, and the deliveries are absolutely flawless. But when we bring it back, and that's where the true artistry comes in, there is still a bit of a jump between digital and analog when we get to that phase. So yeah, the one thing we did miss, or that is not there, and I don't think there will be a link, is an actual face bow transfer.
But my guess is that somehow that's going to start to be developed with, extraoral scannings. I think we'll probably be able to get there, right? Perhaps.
That's right. Yeah. So that would be the link. Now, what we're seeing, and I think Dr. Lawrence is here somewhere, Dr. Lawrence and Ferry. About 3 years ago, Dr. Ferry came to me and said, "Which digital scanner do we buy?" And iTero was hands down the leader, 2 years ago. Now it's changed. So we're always very careful to say, buy this, do this, go there. But I think if you find a system that you're comfortable with, the support will start to generate around these systems. Now, any system coming into the lab is going to give us, the ability to bring that in. So Steve found the video. Is that the video, Steve? Yeah. So if you look at this is a case we did with Dr. Cook. His assistant is basically instant messaging us and asking us to look at one of her scans. Now, if you do this, it shows up from our login section, so you can come in and say, "Can somebody look at a case for me real quick?" And they'll look at the case for you. And we're about 2 minutes from being done. So you can see Erin says, "I'm picking up the scan." Grant says, "I'm available if you need something. Can you send me your unique number?" They give us the number, and that's the access code into their computer system. So once I punch that access code into my system, we'll literally take control over the chairside scanner, the intraoral scanner. Now, I remember in the beginning, and you can see now, Erin is controlling the scan remotely. So she's looking at what Dr. Cook's assistant is looking at, and she notices that the distofacial margin here is a little washed out. So she goes back to her instant messaging, say, "Are you okay with me trimming this out for you?" So while Dr. Cook is packing cord, drying that, making sure the isolation is good, we go back in and we delete that margin. So we can take care of these things remotely and make sure that there's no stop. So imagine now if you had one of these systems and you weren't sure how to do this, and you have to go to the phone, call an 800 number, and then wait for 5 or 10 minutes to speak to somebody that doesn't know clinical. And that's why we got involved, and that's what we're trying to do. So you can see Erin is there busy cutting out that margin, and she goes, "Can you go back? Can you isolate that for us, rescan it?" So I remember one of the days just after Dr. Scuria got his counter, and thank you that I can make fun of you, Dr. Scuria. The scanner wasn't working, and he couldn't get the scanner going. So we were able to remote in, and all it was just a button that had to be pressed to get him back into the scanning mode. I'm not sure if you can remember those days. And so now something like that takes 5 minutes, but the learning curve is much better because you know what you did wrong. So now Erin asked for a a high definition picture. And you can see now the machine is actually taking a picture in high definition. And we're able to superimpose that picture when we do our final trimming. So there you can see she's controlled by Erin again. She looks at it. She's going to go back and then look at a final diagnostic. We can look at clearance. We can look at draw. And while you're chairside, we can tell you we have a little undercut on the mesial. You can go back in, adjust that, scan it back in, and send the scan. So at this point, everything looks good. And she's going to go back and check clearance. The machine gives us the ability to look at clearance. We set the bar to 2.5 millimeters. When we zoom in, we can see we have 2 millimeters on that cusp, and then we go from there. So once you take a digital impression, we're ready to restore the case, and we're sure we can get there. So I know you guys are ready to get out of here. Really appreciate your support. We see you guys as family and friends. So honored to know so many great clinicians that work with us. Without my team, these yearly meetings, these annual conferences, time flies. I can't believe I stood here 12 months ago. And we're back at the end of the year. So I'd like to take a minute to say thank you to everybody that was part of this. And if you guys would join me just to give all of them a thank you. So I'd be remiss if I don't pay special homage to Tricia Kimball, who was our meeting coordinator this year. Tricia, are you around? So I found this picture on Facebook. Can you come up here, Tricia? And this was last night at about 12 o'clock, and I think this was in the lab. Tricia, you did a great job. We appreciate all the effort. Flawless conference. And I promise you we won't do this ever again. Thank you so much. Thank you. And we got you some flowers to make up.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Maybe we'll do it again next year. I'd like to thank everybody for supporting. This is our 8th conference. It started with about 40 people in a small hotel, and we've been averaging about 200 people every year. And I really hope these conferences are worthwhile, gives you a little something to take home on Monday, gives you a better idea of what we can and cannot do. And once again, from all of us as Absolute, you're the reason we exist. We appreciate everything you do for us, and we're very proud to be a part of this community. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Folks. Thank you.